Hey guys, wanted to make a quick video here. Just letting you guys know today is the final day to join the Create an EP in 30 Days Master Course. And we still have a handful of spaces left. So if you get on it, you could get on the inside and join us in the private group and everything. So what I was going to do here is just kind of lay out the format that you can expect from this course. And hopefully give you guys a better idea of what this course is all about and why the graduates love it so much. So I'm just going to go through this really quickly. I don't want to waste any of your time or whatever, and I appreciate you taking the time to check this out. So let's start with day one. Day one probably seems cliche, but setting your intention and setting your goal in advance of what you want to accomplish is incredibly important in anything that you take on in life, but especially something like finishing songs, this is a habit that it's not. Creative habits are not normal habits. They're things that your brain can tell you are not necessary parts of your day. So it's very easy, if you don't set a proper goal, to get off track very, very easily. So this is actually really important, and I really spend the first day getting your brain kind of tuned for what's ahead so that you're in the right mental state. And students have said that this really, really helps through the whole process. Day two, get you started. I try to catch everyone up here, teaching you guys all the important shortcuts in Ableton. You know, Ableton does a million things, but when it comes to finishing songs, you don't need to know every single thing, but there are certain things and certain little ninja tips that can help you accomplish things much more quickly. You know, if you're thinking that you need a huge toolbox in order to make songs, I try to remove that pressure from you and let you know that, you know, whatever you have right now is exactly what you need. You're fine. All right. So day two is just catching you up to Ableton. If you've never even used Ableton, this is going to be like a nice crash course and, you know, let you know what you need to know, the most important shortcuts and things like that. And I tell all my students that the quality of your listening directly correlates to the quality of your music production. So understanding how to listen is an incredible skill that most people have really never taken the time to do when they're diving into music production. So this is a huge step that will affect the rest of the course in a pretty big way. Step four, we go into your go-to effects. And here's the thing, everyone's going to have a different set of go-to effects depending on their specific genre of music or style. So this is really about getting your unique sound and figuring out what effects are necessary in order to make that happen. You know, that way you only have a handful of effects that you really need to work with and you can kind of ignore the other ones. So this is a really important step as well. It's kind of like the 80-20 rule. You know, you usually only use 20% of something in order to get 80% of your results. So this is a way to really wipe your slate clean and figure out what your most important go-to effects and instruments are. In step five, we start collecting the sounds that you're going to need for your style of music. One of the big problems a lot of people have is they go at this without preparing, and they don't really have the sounds that they need in order to create the kinds of songs that they want to create. So this is a really great step in you getting kind of a nice collection of sounds that are going to work within your style. When you're confident that the sounds that you have are going to work within your style, the rest of the process goes so much more easily. On day six, this is a very important one. I talk about the 4 essential effects that everyone needs to understand and really understand some detail about these effects. If you don't learn these 4 effects, the quality of your mixes is going to suffer in a pretty huge way. So this is a very important step, teaching you what these are, why you need them, and how to use them. And then day 7, we get started with actually creating our song. So this is the beginning where you're going to create an 8-bar loop from scratch. And I give you a number of tips in making this process painless and also understanding that great songs have humble beginnings so that you don't need to really overdo it here. You know, what's important usually in this beginning stage is that you get a basic drum groove, get a basic bass line going, and maybe just one kind of part that's going to set it apart a little bit. Maybe that's a bit of a melody or something like that. But you're not building the whole song here necessarily. You're getting a starting point. And that's really important for you to understand. Otherwise, your brain, kind of explodes thinking that it needs to take on too much in such a small amount of time. Day 8, you've kind of finished your first 8-bar loop, and now you kind of have kind of a set idea. And what I encourage everyone to do is create an EP where all the songs are pretty much the same style. You don't want to make 3 completely different styles of music on one EP, because it will confuse the types of people that want to buy your songs. You know, you don't want people buying your EP for just one song. You want people buying your songs and being able to play all 3 of them for their style. Many of your listeners are actually going to be DJs, performers, right? So you want to give them one sound where they can count on, if they like one song, they're pretty much going to like all 3. So this is where we really kind of map that out. And before we go on to the next step, we make sure that you kind of have a blueprint for two more songs, you know, up to 3 more songs. But I would recommend about 2 more songs within this first process. You know, once you go through this whole process, finishing a song in 5 to 7 days is completely doable and repeatable over and over again. On day 9, we start to add meat to your looped groove. We kind of build out this kind of rough skeleton, this rough blueprint, and we turn it into something that you can really nod your head to and really kind of get an idea of what the whole song is going to sound like. And then I show you a very easy approach to structuring and getting your song basically arranged. And once again, you're not doing all the tiny details here. You're kind of doing the broad strokes. And if you're able to kind of look at your computer screen and see what appears to look like a song, your brain's going to think about this looped groove in a lot of different ways. So I show you some very simple ways to get that process started for you and get your song completely structured. On day 10, I take you into sound design, and these are sound design techniques that don't require you to be a sound design master. I wouldn't consider myself to be a sound design master, but my songs tend to have some really great sounds in them, and I want to show you many of my techniques to getting that accomplished, you know, and get it accomplished as painlessly as possible. On the next day, we really create a sound palette. These are the sounds that you're going to use to really kind of fill in the gaps of your song. You know, what you'll notice when you have kind of the meat done and you have the you know, your overall groove, that, you know, over a certain amount of time, things are going to sound boring. There's going to be these empty parts that need to be filled, and you're going to be asking yourself, well, what do I fill it with? What do I do? And this is a lesson that makes this whole process much easier. So you don't really have to spend too much time questioning what sounds are going to work within your track and what sounds you need in order to accomplish that. On day 12, I'm going to teach you some really great ways to manipulate your sounds that you already have and turn them into other sounds that you can use within your track to kind of fill up your song. And when you're manipulating a sound that you already have, it's kind of like a sibling. Even if it sounds completely different, there's something about it that makes it kind of meld with your overall song. So it makes it much more easy to input these sounds that you've manipulated back into your song to kind of fill up the spaces and build a more complex and rich sound. The next day is going to be about builds and breaks in your song. We wait till this point where we've kind of got our song mapped out for the most part before we work on the builds and breaks, because builds and breaks, you can work on these in the early stages and it can really screw up the overall arrangement because you're trying to make the arrangement work with the builds and the breaks. Whereas what you should be doing is making the builds and breaks work with your arrangement properly. So this tends to be a very good time to start putting those together. And I'll show you a number of ways to make this process a lot less painless and give you a lot more confidence in how to make something that's gonna work well within your song. On day 14, this is where we've kind of filled up the song. We've kind of got a lot of really good stuff happening with builds and breaks and stuff like that, but we're still feeling that the song is missing that something, right? This is a day where we keep the song interesting throughout, and we recognize when a song has lost some of its interest. And we do that with transition sounds and fillers and evolving sounds. Sometimes it can be just a very, very quiet, like ambient sound in the background that fills the space, and you would have had no idea that small detail could actually add so much to the overall depth of your song. So this is where we really get into that part of the songwriting process. On day 15, in order to keep your song interesting in a lot of different ways, there's an assortment of different things that you can do to make things that, let's say, for example, like a snare drum or hi-hats or whatever, things that kind of repeat quite a bit, to give them a little extra magic in different spots. And we can do this with return tracks. And there's some very cool ninja tricks that I can show you that can get really great results and give you kind of unpredictable results as well to, once again, give the song more richness and depth. As you see during the last few days, this has been a real big topic because this is the thing that makes or breaks the song. So you're learning this whole process so that you have a toolbox full of ideas and techniques that you can use to really make sure that your song is not lacking at all in all the elements that make a track great. On day 16, this is where you've kind of got all the parts and everything is kind of laid out nicely, but now it's time to really focus on your mix and really dial that in and make sure that you're making the mix the best that it can be. Now remember, you're not mastering your track. What you're doing is you're making each separate channel, each separate sound as good as it can be. Your master track should have nothing on it. On occasion, I may use like a filter on the master track just for a small amount of time, where I might filter out the low end or something like that. But other than that, there's no compressors, there's no limiters, there's no sonic enhancers of any sort. That should all be done in your mix, and your mix should be then properly mixed down and sent to a mastering engineer. So this is where you dial in that mix that is going to go to a professional to master your track, and I highly recommend that you do that. And this is a very important step to the whole process. If you don't really dial in that mix, all these fantastic parts are just not going to work, and your song's not going to be as listenable. On day 17 of the process, this is what I kind of call the final process. This is where you really know whether your song is finished or not, and how to go through this process of knowing that and being able to call the song done. You could say that a song is never finished, right? And that would be true. You can always continue to add certain things. Calling a song done means that you've taken it as far as you can take it at that time. And when you listen back to it, you can hear it as a quality song. And this is a process that we go through to get you to that stage of being able to confidently call your song finished. Step 18 in the process is really, this is where you tackle finishing the EP that you blueprinted. This is where you're going to repeat the process that you just learned to finish your whole EP. Only at this point, the process for you is going to go much faster. And you're also going to have some ideas already laid out, so you're not starting with a blank slate at this time. And finally, day 19 or step 19, I talk about strategies to getting your track signed, and also a lot of the rookie mistakes that are made that will keep you from getting your tracks signed. This is some very important information on what to avoid and a proper way to approach building these relationships with record labels. So that's the whole process. By the time you get to that last step, you have your EP of 2, 3, or even 4 songs completed, and you have the confidence to continue to go through this process and, like I said, speed up your songwriting process so that you can carry this with you for years to come. I mean, you could carry this with you for the rest of your life and continue to keep this pace and make as many songs as you would like. This is the exact process that I used to finish 52 songs in 13 months, which to me is the most that I've ever created. So I know that this works. I've gotten amazing reviews from my students about this process. And of course, you'll meet all these people in the private group and what have you. So like I said, I have a few spots left. The doors are closing tonight. So if you're interested, go to the link and jump in, and I'll make sure that you're completely set up. I can't wait to see some of you guys on the inside. Take care.